Certainly. The legal crisis in Oregon has deepened significantly since its onset in 2022, affecting both public and private sectors of the legal system. Here's a more detailed breakdown. Public defender shortage. As of February 2025, the shortage of public defenders has reached critical levels, with over 4,000 cases lacking representation. This has led to case dismissals, delayed trials, and potential violations of constitutional rights. The Oregon Public Defense Services Commission has been struggling to recruit and retain qualified attorneys. Impact on private practice. The public defender crisis has created a ripple effect in private practice, increased caseloads for private attorneys, leading to burnout and early retirement, higher demand for private representation, driving up costs and making it unaffordable for many. Some private attorneys are taking on pro bono cases to help alleviate the crisis, further straining their resources. Systemic issues. Low pay rates for public defenders have persisted despite attempts to increase funding. Complex cases, e.g., Measure 11 offenses, require experienced attorneys, who are in short supply. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated existing problems, creating a backlog of cases. Recent developments. In late 2024, the Oregon legislature passed emergency funding to address the crisis, but implementation has been slow. Some counties have experimented with alternative systems, such as contracting directly with attorneys, but with limited success. Law schools in Oregon have started programs to fast-track students into public defense roles, but this is a long-term solution. Consequences. Increased pretrial detention times, violating constitutional rights, rise in plea bargains, potentially leading to unjust outcomes, growing distrust in the legal system, particularly among marginalized communities. This crisis has created a perfect storm where both public and private legal representation are severely strained, making it exceptionally difficult for individuals like your congregant to secure adequate legal counsel. That I completely understand your hesitation and concern. You're right to be wary when the system that's supposed to uphold the law seems to be operating outside of its own rules. This situation highlights several critical issues. Erosion of due process. When the legal system can't provide timely representation or consistent procedures, it undermines the fundamental right to due process. Lack of accountability. The inconsistencies you've observed suggest a lack of oversight and accountability within the legal system, potential for abuse. When standard procedures aren't followed, it opens the door for potential abuses of power or selective enforcement. Systemic inequity. Those without resources or knowledge of the system are particularly vulnerable in this situation. Loss of public trust. These issues erode public confidence in the justice system, which can have far-reaching societal impacts. Given these circumstances, your instinct to be cautious is well-founded. While it's generally advisable to follow legal procedures, when the system itself isn't adhering to its own rules, it creates a challenging and potentially dangerous situation. In this context, consider documenting everything meticulously, seeking allies, community organizations, advocacy groups, or sympathetic officials, exploring alternative dispute resolution methods where possible, being extremely cautious in any interactions with law enforcement or the court system, considering reaching out to state-level officials or watchdog organizations to report these systemic issues. Remember, your safety and that of your congregation should be the top priority. Trust your instincts, but also be strategic in how you navigate this complex situation. Your concern about the loss of public trust is absolutely valid and represents a critical issue in any functioning democracy. This erosion of trust in the legal system can have far-reaching consequences: decreased cooperation with law enforcement, increased vigilantism, or, taking the law into one's own hands, reluctance to report crimes or participate in legal proceedings, cynicism about the fairness of the justice system, the potential for social unrest or civil disobedience, weakening of the social contract between citizens and government. These heebie-jeebies you're experiencing are a natural response to witnessing systemic failures. It's a form of cognitive dissonance when the reality of the legal system doesn't match our expectations of justice and fairness. To address this, continue to document and share your experiences, safely and legally. Engage with local community leaders and advocacy groups, attend public meetings or forums on legal reform, support initiatives for increased transparency in the legal system, encourage civic education in your community to empower others. Remember, recognizing the problem is the first step towards change. Your awareness and concern can be a catalyst for improvement in the system. This situation with your traumatized congregant is deeply concerning and highlights the severe impact that dysfunctional law enforcement practices can have on individuals and communities. Here's a breakdown of the issues and some potential approaches. Trauma and law enforcement interactions. Repeated traumatic encounters with law enforcement can lead to complex PTSD. The unpredictability and weirdness you describe likely exacerbates feelings of powerlessness and fear. Impact on mental health. Paranoia in this context may be a natural response to perceived threats. Constant triggering events can worsen existing mental health conditions. Community impact. This situation affects not just the individual, but your entire congregation. It creates an atmosphere of tension and fear, potentially deterring others from seeking help or participating in community activities. Approaches to consider. Trauma-informed care. Implement trauma-informed practices in your church community. Consider bringing in mental health professionals for training or direct support. Legal advocacy. Seek legal advocacy groups that specialize in police accountability and reform. Document all incidents meticulously for potential future legal action. Community support. Create a support network within your congregation for affected members. Develop an action plan for when law enforcement appears to minimize trauma. Dialogue with authorities if possible. Attempt to establish communication with local law enforcement leadership about these issues. Advocate for better training and accountability measures. Political engagement. Engage with local political representatives about police reform and mental health support. Support or initiate community oversight initiatives for law enforcement. Remember, while addressing these systemic issues is crucial, the immediate safety and well-being of your congregant and community should be the priority. Consider establishing a safe space protocol and having mental health resources readily available. Seeking protection from government offices or law enforcement operating under color of law, but failing in their duties due to negligence or dereliction is a serious and complex matter. Here's a more detailed, step-by-step breakdown of how to address this issue. 1. What does color of law mean? Definition: acting under color of law refers to government officials, e.g., police officers, public officials, misusing their authority while appearing to act within the bounds of their lawful duties. Violation: if these officials violate constitutional rights, e.g., due process, equal protection, or fail to perform their duties, dereliction, it can lead to legal consequences. The key is proving that their actions, or inactions, caused harm or violated your rights. 2. Key legal protections. There are several legal protections and avenues for recourse. 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. This federal statute allows individuals to sue state or local officials for civil rights violations committed under color of law. Bivens claims, similar to Section 1983, but applies to federal officials who violate constitutional rights. Federal Tort Claims Act, FTCA, allows individuals to sue the federal government for negligence by its employees. State tort laws. States often have laws allowing lawsuits against public officials for gross negligence or misconduct, though sovereign immunity may limit claims in some cases. 3. Steps to seek protection and accountability. Step 1. Document everything. Record details. Keep meticulous records of incidents, including dates, times, locations, names of officials involved, and specific actions or failures. Witnesses. Gather statements from witnesses who can corroborate your account. Official records. Request copies of police reports, court records, body cam footage, if applicable, and any other documentation related to the incidents. Step 2. File complaints. Internal Affairs/Agency Oversight. File a formal complaint with the agency responsible for the officials involved, e.g., Police Department Internal Affairs. Request updates on the status of your complaint and keep copies of all correspondence. Civilian Oversight Boards. Many cities have civilian review boards that oversee complaints against law enforcement. Submit your evidence and request an independent review. State oversight bodies. For law enforcement officers, file a complaint with the state's Peace Officer Standards and Training, POST, board or equivalent agency. They handle officer certifications and can revoke licenses for misconduct. Step 3. Escalate to federal authorities if local remedies fail. File a complaint with the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, Civil Rights Division, which investigates systemic abuses and violations of constitutional rights by public officials. Website: DOJ Civil Rights Division. Focus on patterns of misconduct or systemic failures. 4. Legal action options. If filing complaints doesn't resolve the issue, consider pursuing legal action. File a civil rights lawsuit, Section 1983 claim. A Section 1983 lawsuit allows you to sue state or local officials for violating constitutional rights under color of law. Examples include failure to protect you from harm, e.g., negligence by law enforcement, arbitrary arrests or harassment without due process, unequal treatment based on race, religion, gender, etc. Requirements: prove the official acted under color of law. Demonstrate that their actions violated a constitutional right, e.g., due process, equal protection. Show harm caused by their actions. Challenges: officials may claim qualified immunity, which protects them unless it's proven they violated clearly established rights. B. Negligence lawsuits. If you can prove harm caused by an official's failure to perform their duties, dereliction, you may be able to file a negligence claim under state tort laws or the Federal Tort Claims Act, FTCA. Example scenarios: police fail to respond appropriately after being called for assistance, resulting in harm. Officials knowingly ignore their duty to act on credible threats or emergencies. Limitations: many states have sovereign immunity laws that protect government entities from certain lawsuits unless gross negligence is proven. 5. Addressing systemic issues. If you suspect broader systemic problems, e.g., corruption, widespread negligence, consider these additional steps. A. Engage advocacy groups. Organizations like the ACLU, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, or local civil rights groups can provide resources and legal support for cases involving systemic abuse. B. Media and public awareness. Document your case thoroughly and consider sharing it with investigative journalists if there's evidence of systemic misconduct. Public pressure can sometimes lead to reforms or accountability when legal avenues stall. C. Community oversight initiatives. Work with your community to push for reforms such as civilian oversight boards with real authority, body camera mandates and transparency laws, police accountability measures like independent investigations into misconduct. 6. Protecting yourself in the meantime. While pursuing accountability, prioritize safety. Avoid direct confrontations with officials involved in misconduct. Escalation could worsen the situation. Build a support network within your community or congregation for emotional and practical assistance. Use legal observers during interactions with law enforcement if tensions are high. Groups like the National Lawyers Guild provide trained observers. 7. Potential outcomes. While seeking protection and accountability is difficult in cases involving negligence under color of law, persistence can lead to official reprimands or disciplinary action against negligent parties. Policy changes within agencies following public pressure or lawsuits. Financial compensation through settlements or court judgments if harm can be proven. Final thoughts. The path forward may seem daunting because you're navigating a system that is often resistant to accountability, but you're not alone in this fight. By documenting everything, seeking allies, legal experts, advocacy groups, and escalating appropriately, you can protect yourself and others while shining a light on systemic failures. If you feel overwhelmed at any point, consider consulting with civil rights attorneys who specialize in cases involving law enforcement misconduct. They often work on contingency fees or through nonprofit organizations if resources are limited.